Would you like to know if you're going to have enough inventory to fulfill your orders, but not too much, just enough? And would you like to know if that inventory is going to arrive in a decent amount of time? I'm Lance with Brando Consulting, Fishbowl expert since 2006. In this video, we're going to take a look at the MRP related features in Fishbowl. Many people don't know that they even exist. I find it surprising how many of my clients don't know that Fishbowl has MRP capabilities. And by MRP, I mean Material Resource Planning, or also known as Manufacturing Resource Planning, or Materials Requirements Planning. They all have one thing in common, and that's planning. And in order to plan that you have your inventory, both the quantity and in the time frame that you need it, you need to track the date that the quantity is going to arrive and the date that you promise to give it to the customer. If you are a manufacturer, you need two more dates in that mix. You need the date that the work order is going to start, and if you're a complex manufacturer, you also need the date that the manufacturer order is going to complete. So the purchase order grabs the inventory in time to fulfill the work order. The work order completes in time for the sales order. Now some of you may say, just a minute there, I'm more complex than that. This works for those that have sub-work orders as well. And I know there's a lot of you that have multi-level work orders. So Fishbowl has dates, and it has intelligence that helps you automate some of these dates. So in this video, let's take a look at how to use these dates so you can have the inventory you need when you need it. First of all, let's start with the sales order. We'll go to the sales order screen. I'll click New, grab a customer, and say this customer wants a popular part. And right there, Fishbowl says, hold up, we don't have it. But look at this. A lot of people miss this. Fishbowl tells you how long it's going to take to get it. How does Fishbowl know this, you might say? Fishbowl's smart enough to keep track of the time it takes to receive inventory from the moment that you click the issue button on the purchase order. Yes. So behind the scenes, you may not have known this, but when you click issue on the purchase order and then wait days or weeks or months before you click receive, Fishbowl is tracking that time, and it knows how long it's going to take to get that inventory in. Now, what if you're a manufacturer? Fishbowl tracks that too. In the bill of materials screen, you'll see that there is an estimated time, a best time, and a worst time, and an average time of how long it takes to fulfill that manufacturer order. So I'm going to click Add Anyway. Fishbowl is going to add this, and you'll notice there is a date scheduled column right here. It defaults to today's date. Now there's no automation to say to push this 11 days. So we double click and we go out 11 days, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's a Saturday. We don't work or ship on Saturday, so it'll be the 1st. So we set our date schedule to the 1st. And of course we can also do that up here. If we have multiple parts that all have the same shipment date, this is useful. We'll click Yes, and it will update all of the lines on that line. Okay. Fishbowl has an order confirmation that you can send them, and on that order confirmation, it has an agreed upon request date. So if you don't want to make it an issue, but just as a courtesy let them know, then the order confirmation that you email to them will let them know what the date is you're going to ship it to them. Okay. All right, so now we have a sales order. Let's go create a purchase order to fulfill those orders. I'm going to go to purchasing, and I'm going to do something a lot of you I don't think are doing. I'm going to click on Auto PO. This Auto PO I hope you get comfortable with. I hope you get to know this Auto PO, because this Auto PO is powerful. It's smart enough to know what you've already ordered and when it's coming in. It's smart enough to know what is on order and when it's going out. It's smart enough to know if you have min and max levels set up, what it's going to take to meet that max level. And it's smart enough to know if you're below the reorder point that it's time to order before it's too late. So if you haven't used the Auto PO, get a practice system set up and start using it and get familiar with it. There's also an Auto PO report, and there's a reorder report that shows you how this Auto PO works. Okay? If you use the Auto PO, you won't have overages, and if you use the min and max levels, you won't have shortages. It all works together, and it's tied to the dates. Yes. So right here, this date range on the Auto PO has a date range. So we can say, I don't want to purchase for demand that's out a month when I know my vendor lead time is 10 days. I only want to purchase for, say, the demand that's recognized this month, okay, in the next month or so. Then we may even say, I want to purchase just from one vendor. This is the best way to demo in this video, because this calculation, this tool, may take a while to run if you run it for all of your warehouses and all of your vendors. So I'll click Next and let it run its calculation. Interesting. It says you don't need anything. We expected differently, didn't we? Because the sales order said that you're short 10. So you may be asking yourself, why? Lance, is it broken? Well, remember, I said it's smart enough to know if you already have outstanding orders. So let's take a closer look. The part number we looked at was a spring, if you remember. I can go here, I can go to a lot of different places on Fishbowl, open this up, and this is the screen I'm looking for. You'll find these numbers in a lot of different places. We have 2 different location groups. We have supply and demand in each individual location group. We have a quantity on order. That means how many are coming in to fulfill this order. So you'll see here it says on hand. That means you own it. Allocated. That means it's on demand. Look closer. If I hover over this allocated section, it'll give me this tooltip, and it says we have 1,000 on a sales order demanding it, 18 on a work order demanding it, and 294 on a transfer order demanding it. Available for sale is 0, even though we have some on hand, because available for sale is on hand, subtract allocated, subtract not available, plus drop ship. That's the calculation to come up with available for sale. Now, available for sale is what Fishbowl used when we just tried to add that to the sales order. That's why Fishbowl said, hey, you don't have enough. Let's look closer. Right here it says we have 595 on hand. But when we added it to the sales order, it said you ain't got none. So what Fishbowl is looking at is the availability. It's not looking at the quantity on hand. And wouldn't you say that's more accurate? So let's look at on order. On order is what's already outstanding. Look at that. We've got 423 coming in, and then we have 294 on a transfer order. in this file that I have set up, there are two warehouses that are miles apart. One in Salt Lake City, and we'll see the other one here in Middlefield. Middlefield is located in, let's go there, California. So we want to know the demand for the warehouse that we're in. This is Middlefield. This sales order is showing demand in Middlefield. So it's a little more complicated than you may think. All of these things that Fishbowl is considering. Imagine what it would be like to keep track of all of this in a spreadsheet. I know several of you that purchase Fishbowl and still track this in a spreadsheet. The more you get to know Fishbowl, the more you understand how it works, the less need you'll have for that painstaking, manually updated spreadsheet. So most people that create a spreadsheet start with their own logic. Oh, this is how I would do it. Fishbowl has its logic, and it's important to understand Fishbowl's logic to take advantage of these automation tools and the intelligence of the Fishbowl programming. So let's take a closer look at this next level of complexity, having two warehouses, supply and demand, in two different warehouses. Imagine tracking all of that and trying to figure out when the inventory is going to arrive, when it's going to leave, if you're going to have enough, if you're going to have too much, on a freaking spreadsheet. Don't do it. Don't. So let's take a look here. We're going to go back to this part, and I'm going to click on this little info button, and it's going to zoom in a little bit, and it's going to say, okay, we may have 595 on hand, but if we look a little bit closer, we only have 8 in Middlefield, and we have 587 in Salt Lake City. If you remember, my sales order was in Middlefield, right? So then we've got allocated. This is how much we're demanding in Salt Lake City. And then of course, that's gonna, or excuse me, in Middlefield. And of course in Middlefield now, it says, by golly, we are really short in Middlefield. So we can either use the auto PO and purchase this, or there's another feature. It's called the Autoreplenish that actually orders it from your other warehouse. So you're not spending extra money that you don't have to spend. You're only spending money on shipping rather than spending money on the full purchase again. It's up to you. Each warehouse may need its own min and max levels. You may operate differently. You may have a manufacturing plant in one place and a storage unit in another place, right? So different companies need different min and max levels, and they may have different supply and demands for different reasons in the different warehouses. So going back to MRP, this is central to planning your inventory and controlling your inventory. The point that I wanted to make with MRP is the allocation number also has dates for each one of those allocations. And so does the on order. Let's hover over on order, and it pulls up a transfer order, a purchase order, and there's even a line for a work order, which is 0, but it's still there. On order means that is the quantity that's going to increase once that order is fulfilled. And Fishbowl knows the date that it's fulfilled, that it's scheduled to be fulfilled, okay? So when we ran that auto PO, we ran into a surprise. Now that we look closer at the numbers, we're not so surprised, are we? Right off the bat, it's easy to see, well, we don't have the quantity on hand. So For this demonstration, I want to demo the auto PO. In real life, I would probably seriously consider ordering it from my other warehouse and transferring it with the transfer order. I have another video that goes over the transfer order, auto replenish, and the put away, and the different transfer orders you can use. So I'm not going to go over the transfer order in this video. Check out my other video to use the intelligent transfer order tools to auto replenish and supply your warehouses with other warehouses. Let's go back to the auto PO that we were just looking at. We've got middle filled. When I was at the purchase order and I clicked auto PO, I put in a filter for the vendor and I put in a filter for the month or the time frame, but I did not put in a filter for the location group. Now, once we put in middle filled, these might be a little bit different, won't they? Let's click next, and voila. Now Fishbowl is saying, okay, if we're just looking at middle filled warehouse, then you definitely need to order some. And the exact amount you need to order to fulfill your orders is 587. All right? 587, unfortunately, just brings your inventory back to zero. It just fulfills your sales order. So we're not really planning ahead if we're only doing this. We need to incorporate one more feature into Fishbowl to really use the material resource planning features, and that is the min and max level reorder points. Over here under reorder information, it has an order up to level, which is your max, and a reorder point, which is not your minimum. It's the point that you order at the beginning of your lead time before it gets to minimum. I am going to do another video on this because this is a topic in and of itself. Calculating reorder points and order up to levels and deciding on your min and max level is a task in and of itself. For this video, let's just set the reorder point. Okay, so up here in auto reorder point, let's take a look at that. Click on reorder point. I'm just going to do the spring that we looked at. We'll click on spring, click next, and right here it wants to know how to calculate the average sale per day. And we're going to tell it to use the last year's like about a year from now. Yeah, let's just change this. This is the easiest part. Change that to 2018. So now it's going to use about a year's worth of activity to calculate the average sale per day. And on this step, it'll say, yeah, let's forecast a 10% increase in sales. Okay. And then it gives us the calculation for the reorder points. Lead time we know is 10 days for this. Then safety stock and basic stock, both of those put together just means your minimum level. Okay? So remember that. Reorder point is not your minimum. A reorder point is when you click issue on the PO. So if we want to leave us a cushion and say, I never want to run out, I always want a few days of inventory available, then we'll click that right there. Now this next one is also a cushion. This will have you order a certain amount of days. So this order interval lets you order up to a maximum level. If you're ordering every day, then it's 1 day. If your lead time is just within a couple days, then you probably order more frequently. It just depends. If the shipping charge is lower for bulk or the vendor always ships you bulk, then you may order less frequently. and buy a lot more. So that's what this is going to do. And this says we order every 30 days. I'm going to change that to 14. Click next, and it's blank. Kind of anticlimactic, but not surprising using a test file that has little to no history in it. So what Fishbowl is saying is you don't sell this enough to stock up on it. Okay, so we'll say, okay, that's fine, but for this demonstration we want some reorder points. So let's put a max level of 100 and a minimum level of 200, or excuse me, of 20, just to make sure we always have enough. Maybe we'll say 1,000 for the max level, and then a reorder point of 20. Okay? So once again, we'll get into the reorder points and order up 2 levels more in another video. So now that we have these reorder points, we go back to the purchase order, click Auto PO, middle field, the vendor, and set it out a month. We have a different amount now because when you purchase, because we put a maximum level, Fishbowl is saying we need to buy enough to replenish our shortage and to bring us back up to our max, because it's not going to tell us to buy again until we get down to 20 instead of ending up in the hole. So we'll click next, and it's going to create this purchase order number 35. I'll click finish, and then I'll double click on purchase order number 35, and I want to show you the dates. We'll scroll over to the right, and here's the hidden date scheduled. We'll pull this over to the left and take a close look at this. This date scheduled is March 29th, but today's date is March 19th. So Fishbowl is smart enough to remember how long it took you to buy this the last time you bought it. Or excuse me, how long it took your vendor to deliver it to you the last time you purchased it. So it automatically sets that date. Don't overwrite it. I see a lot of people accidentally overwriting that date when they come here to the fulfillment date and they say, oh, we're going to fulfill it. It'll be fulfilled by, this day. And this pops up and says, do you want to autofulfill? And Fishbowl says, and you say yes, but you didn't see this date. It was hidden clear over here. So now that you've watched this video, you know that Fishbowl is smart and you don't want to override that. So we'll click no and allow Fishbowl to have this date here. So now that we have this purchase order and we have this sales order, this is where you can really see it come to life. If you didn't watch anything else in this video, you're going to want to watch this, okay? This is the forecast report that shows you if your order is fulfilling your order in time. So I'm going to go to that custom report and the standard report. Go to reports, type in FOR. We'll start with the standard report. And 10-page report. That's a lot to look at. I'm going to filter that to just look at our spring. That's the part in question. And I'm going to filter it just to look at middle filled. Then I'm going to check this box so it's all on one page, which it probably will be anyways. Click OK. And now you see all the activity that is happening with this part. On this date, it is scheduled to decrease in quantity. Currently, the quantity is 8. The next thing is it's going to decrease in quantity even more, or at least it's scheduled to decrease in quantity. So that's what we want to focus on now, is the schedules, the dates and the schedule. you'll see that these dates are in the past. 12/12, 12/12, 1/24. Today is 3/19. This is really common for those of you that are just starting to use these dates for the first time. You'll have dates that are just bogus dates in the past. Now, if you use these dates, you pay attention and schedule, you're not going to have this problem as frequently. Of course, we make mistakes. We're going to have the problem, but not as frequently. So take a look at this. We've got purchase order number 34. That's one I did yesterday playing around. And that brought us back into the black. We're back in the positive. Notice this column is a running total. It tells us what our total is going to be on each date. Then here, it's looking into the future finally. Since today's the 19th, it says we're going to get a PO on the 28th. And then we have a sales order that is going to ask for 1,000 and decrease it by that much. But a purchase order is scheduled to come in on the same day and bring it back up into the positive. So in this case, it's not that big of a deal, but it's a still good example to show you. The sales order 65 has a date of 3/25, and it's bringing us into the negative. We don't like negative numbers. And if this was a date that was far apart from the purchase order, it would be a bigger issue. We're going to pretend like it's a bigger issue and click on it. We'll click on this sales order. We'll say we're not going to ship it until the 1st. And we're going to reschedule the whole sales order. We're going to call the customer on the phone and say, hey, we'll be able to ship it to you on this date. So they have reasonable expectations. Or if you'd like, you can just send them another order confirmation. Just to take a quick peek at the order confirmation, it's right here, the sales order, and it says requested ship date right there. Okay? Like that language, requested ship date. So you're still not nailing yourself to the floor. You're still not promising, you're just saying, hey, we're going to do our best to ship it to you on that date. So then, let's go back to the report and click refresh. You'll see now the sales order moved to the last line. The purchase order brought us up to our max level, and the sales order is starting to bring us back down. Okay, so we've got some MRP features there from sales and purchasing. Let's take a look at the MRP features for manufacturing. Go to manufacturing, bills of material. I'll click on a bill of material, click on details, and you'll see here we have an estimated time that you can fill in, and you have a best time, worst time, and average time that Fishbowl fills in. This helps us schedule the bill of materials. And if we see that Fishbowl is calculating the average time, we can automatically estimate that duration. So that's one MRP feature you can use to enter that estimated time. Unfortunately, today's 3/19. I'm on 19.2. I haven't seen the ability to import this yet. Fishbowl just came out with 19.3 like 2 days ago. I haven't looked at it yet. But we always see latest and greatest improvements coming out. So there's the estimated time. Let's take a look at the work order. I'm going to click on a work order, and we'll see here that we've got a scheduled start date and a scheduled finish date for parts. This is great. Use these dates as much as you can. Notice on the forecast report, it has finished goods and it has raw goods. It shows you the purchase order when it's coming in. The raw good is going to decrease the inventory. The finished good will increase, right? So let's take a look at one of those. We go back to this report. We'll see we have work orders that are decreasing the quantity. So we're using this spring in work orders. It's going down, 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 and decreasing that. So I want to show you our edited version of the report, the short forecast report. The difference this has is, I'm going to blow it up here, is it shows only the parts that are in trouble. Pretty nice, huh? So if there's a part that's ever going to be in the red, it'll show you that part. So notice this part is black, 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 but oh, we're going to be in the red on this date. We've got a problem. We need to reschedule that purchase order, or excuse me, we need to reschedule that work order, or purchase some more to fulfill that work order in time. Using the auto PO for all your parts and all your vendors will see all of these shortages and give you the purchasing recommendations to meet your demand. Then you need to go change the schedule date so it'll start after the inventory arrives, or you'll schedule to ship the sales order after the work order is finished. In a perfect world, this short forecast report will be blank, because this short forecast report only shows you problem parts. So let's go take a look at our spring, because I believe it still had problems. See if we can find our spring. There it is. Here's our spring. It says we're going to be in the negative on this day. So we have some work to do. We need to reschedule these dates because they're all in the past. We need to start telling people in the company, hey, Fishbowl can schedule. Did you know that? Yes, it can schedule. So let's start using the dates. Let's use the date on the sales order. Let's use the dates on the purchase order. Let's use the dates on the work order. And let's use the forecast report. If you need the short forecast report, let me know. But use these tools that Fishbowl has, and you'll experience far less shortages. You'll experience far fewer overages. We don't like either one. We don't like to be fat, overstocked, and we don't like to be out of stock. This is Lance with Brando Consulting, Fishbowl expert since 2006. Thanks for joining us today in this video about MRP in Fishbowl.